Borthakur IAS Academy, an endeavor of excellence.
Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, welcome to Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. Today I am here with another segment of Current Affairs 365, dated 3rd of July 2021. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram. The first news for today is related to the GS paper 1 as well as 2, and this can be tagged under the subtopics of population and associated issues, technology missions as well as government policies and interventions. So recently the Prime Minister of our country has addressed a virtual event in order to mark the completion of 6 years of Digital Indian program. So here we will take a look at the important points of his address. Okay, we will see some other schemes of Digital India program. Then we will see the vision areas of this program. We'll have a look at the objectives and also some of the significant achievements of this program so far. Okay, so first of all, this his address, the Prime Minister's address, talks about the India decade. This decade of Indian prowess presents a massive opportunity for the country, and therefore it will be known as India's decade. Okay, so then some other schemes of Digital India were highlighted. It includes the Diksha, which stands for Digital Infrastructure for Knowledge Sharing, and it serves as the national digital infrastructure for teachers. All teachers across the nation will be equipped with advanced digital technology through this program. Next we have the eNAM. It was launched on 14th of April 2016 as a pan-India electronic trade portal which links the agricultural procedure market committees across the states. Then we have eSanjeevani. It is a telemedicine service platform of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the DigiBunai, which aids the weavers to create digital artwork and translate the sari design to be loaded to the looms. So this DigiBunai trademark is a first of its kind open source software for the jacquard and Toby weaving. Then we can also talk about the PM Swanidhi scheme. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Areas, they launched this Pradhan Mantri Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi or PM Swanidhi for providing affordable loans to the street vendors. It incentivizes the digital transactions by the street vendors. And also the Digital India program, it laid stress on digital solutions during COVID-19 like the contract tracing app known as Arogya Setu. Now this program, Digital India, was launched in the year 2015, and it has been enabled for several important government schemes like the BharatNet, then Make in India concept, Startup India, Stand Up India, Industrial Corridors, etc. The vision areas of this program includes digital infrastructure as utility to every citizen. Next is governance and services on demand for all the people of our country, and lastly to digitally empower the citizens of our country. So coming to the major objectives now, it is to prepare India for a knowledge future and also making technology central to enable changes. Some significant achievements of this program includes digital payment, the introduction of unified payment interface, which introduced the benefits of digital payment in every part of our country, and this also encouraged a number of private players to provide alternatives for digital payments, which completely transformed the Indian economy. Next is easing the operations of businesses, the electronic customer identification system or eKYC, then the electronic document storage system DigiLocker, as well as the electronic signature system. They were introduced to help businesses streamline their operations. And lastly, the Beyond the Jam Trinity. It started as a simple step to kick off the Jam Trinity, that is Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and Mobile, in order to weed out any leakages in our system. But today it has empowered the entire vaccination drive of our country, making India only the second nation next to USA that has administered 20 crore vaccines so far. The second news is related to the water dispute between the two states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Amid the escalating tensions, the police forces were deployed at various hydropower projects in the bordering districts of both the states. Andhra Pradesh has complained to the Krishna River Management Board about drawing of water from the Sri Sailam project of by Telangana for power generation. And in response, the board in its recent orders had asked Telangana to stop power generation. But the tension has emerged over defiance of orders of the board by the Telangana government. Now coming to this dispute, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, they share stretches of the two rivers, Krishna and the Godavari, along with their tributaries. Okay, and both the states have proposed several new projects without getting clearance from the river boards, the Central Water Commission and the Apex Council as mandated by the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act of 2014. As per this act, it mandates for the constitution of an apex council by the central government for supervision of the functioning of Godavari River Management Board and Krishna River Management Board. This council, it comprises the Union Water Ministers, Water Resources Minister and the Chief Ministers of both the states. Okay. So, coming to this interstate river water disputes, Article 262 of our constitution provides for adjudication of interstate water disputes. Okay, and under this, the parliament may by law provide for the adjudication of any dispute or complaint with respect to the use, distribution and control of water of any interstate river and river valley. The Parliament may also provide that neither the Supreme Court nor any other court is to exercise jurisdiction in respect of any such dispute or complaint. The Parliament has enacted the two laws, the River Boards Act of 1956 and the Interstate Water Disputes Act of 1956. The River Boards Act, it provides for establishment of river boards by the central government for the regulation and development of any interstate river and river valleys. So secondly, the Interstate Water Disputes Act, it empowers the central government to set up an ad hoc tribunal for the adjudication of a dispute between two or more states in relation to the waters of an interstate river or river valley. So here the decision of the tribunal is final and binding on the parties of the dispute, and neither the Supreme Court nor any other court is to have any jurisdiction in respect to water disputes which may be referred to such a tribunal under this act. Now coming to these two rivers, see, related to this particular news, we just need to remember the two rivers, Godavari and Krishna, and also the article 262 of Constitution, which provides for adjudication of interstate water disputes. So first of all, coming to the river Godavari, it rises from the Trimbakeshwar near Nasik in Maharashtra and flows for a length of about 1465 km before finally falling into the Bay of Bengal. And the Godavari basin, it extends over the states of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Chhattisgarh and Orissa. And in addition to that, it also covers a smaller part of Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka and the Union Territory of Pondicherry. Now coming to the Krishna River, which originates near Mahabaleshwar, Satara in Maharashtra. It is the second biggest river in peninsular India after river Godavari. And this river, it runs from four states, Maharashtra, North Karnataka, and the rest of its 1300 kilometer journey is through Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. This river also empties into the Bay of Bengal. Then the third news is about the WASH report. Okay, in a new report by the WASH Institute, which is a global non-profit organization, India was responsible for the largest drop in open defecation since the year 2015 in terms of absolute numbers. And here in this report, emphasis was also made on the United Nations mandated Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Okay. So WASH, it is an acronym that stands for the interrelated areas of water, sanitation and hygiene. And the World Health Organization WASH strategy from 2018 to 25 has been developed in response to the member state resolution and also the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. It covers the Sustainable Development Goal number 3, good health and well-being, and number 6, which is related to clean water and sanitation. WASH is a component of World Health Organization's 13th General Program of Work, which aims to contribute to the health of 3 billion through multi-sectoral actions like better emergency preparedness and response. And this also takes on board the need for progressive realization of the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation, which has been adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in July 2010. Now coming to this, the key findings of this report. First is on open defecation. Within India, open defecation had been highly variable regionally since the year of 2006, but by 2016 open defecation had decreased in all states, with special emphasis on Himachal Pradesh and Haryana. Then what is mainly open defecation? It refers to the practice whereby people go out in fields, bushes, forests, etc. Okay, instead of using closed toilet, and it poses a serious threat to the health of children in our country. It exposes women to danger like physical attacks and encounters such as snake bites, and also poor sanitation cripples national development by diverting people's hard-earned money towards out-of-pocket expenditure on health rather than on productive investment like education. Okay, so this was all about open defecation. Then the second point which was highlighted in this report was on the Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Between 2016 and 2020, the global population with access to safely managed drinking water at home has increased to 74% from earlier 70%. And there is an improvement in at-source water resources and on-site sanitation systems as well. So coming to the at-source water resources, it includes the piped water, boreholes or tube wells, protected dug wells, protected springs, rainwater and packaged or delivered water. And this on-site sanitation system is a system in which excreta and wastewater are collected. They are stored or treated on the plot where they are generated. Okay, and also there has been an increase in the safely managed sanitation services from 47% to 54% by the year 2020. However, the major challenges which are placed in this report, it includes the long-term sustainability of both centralized and decentralized sanitation. Here the major requirement is proper funding and investment. This report also talked about the hygiene context in the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, in June 2020, the World Health Organization and UNICEF, they jointly launched the Hand Hygiene for All initiative, which aims at improving the access to hand washing infrastructure as well as stimulating changes in hand washing practices where the facilities are available. However, it should be highlighted here that hand washing facilities with soap and water increased to 71% from 67%. Now coming to some government initiatives in this regard, first is the National Rural Sanitation Strategy. The Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation under Ministry of Jal Shakti, it has launched the 10-year Rural Sanitation Strategy starting from 2019 up to the year 2029. This particular initiative, it lays down a framework to guide local governments, policymakers, implementers and other relevant stakeholders in their planning for one defecation free plus status, where everyone uses a toilet and every village has access to solid and liquid waste management. Secondly, we have the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin Phase 2, which emphasizes the sustainability of achievements under Phase 1 and also to provide adequate facilities for solid, liquid and plastic waste management in the rural areas of our country. Then we have the Open Defecation Free, then Open Defecation Free Plus and Open Defecation Free Plus status for towns and cities. The next news is about the Lowering Emissions by Accelerating Forest Finance Coalition, which was announced at the Leaders Summit on Climate in the year 2021, this year. Okay, this coalition is going to be one of the largest ever public-private efforts to protect the tropical forests, as it intends to mobilize at least $1 billion USD in financing those countries who are committed to protect their tropical forests. So this coalition is a collective of the governments of the United States of America, United Kingdom and Norway, and as it is a public-private effort, thus it is also being supported by some transnational corporations like Unilever, Amazon.com, Nestle, Airbnb, etc. Any country who is willing to participate would need to fulfill certain predetermined conditions that are being laid down by this coalition. So this model, it weighs on work by the Environmental Defense Fund over 2 decades in collaboration with indigenous communities, forest peoples, then some NGOs based in Brazil and US, and other partners to protect the Amazon as well as other tropical forests globally. The performances here will be measured against the TREES standard, the REDD+ Environmental Excellence Standard. We'll discuss about this in the later part of the news. Okay. First of all, coming to the significance of this particular coalition, it is going to provide a platform for private leadership. The goal of net zero emissions cannot be reached without bold leadership from the private sector and commitment to leverage its scale. Okay, so this is going to provide us the opportunity for increasing the investment capacity and political power in order to build a more suitable, resilient and equitable future. Then it will increase the carbon sink. We all know tropical forests, these are massive carbon sinks, and by investing in their protection, the public and private players, they are likely to stock up on their carbon credits. And along with that, it is also going to be helpful in achieving the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. This will also solve the development versus ecological commitment. Okay, financial impetus is crucial as it incentivizes the developing countries to capture extensive deforestation and also provide livelihood opportunities to the forest dependent populations. And finally, it will also complement other global goals. Ending tropical and subtropical forest loss by the year 2030 is vital in achieving the global climate, biodiversity and sustainable development goals. Along with that, it is also going to help in sustaining the well-being and cultures of indigenous people and other forest communities. Now coming to the Indian scenario, India's total forest cover is 24.56% of the geographical area of our country. Okay, as per observations made by Global Forest Watch, India has lost nearly 38.5 thousand hectares of tropical forest in the years of 2019 and 2020. Also, a 0.67% decrease in tree cover has been recorded across the country in the same period. Mizoram has witnessed the biggest decline in forest area with a loss of 47.2 thousand hectares, followed by Manipur, Assam, Meghalaya and Nagaland. So, we can say that the northeastern states, they have witnessed the biggest decline in their forest cover. Now, what are the conservation steps that are being taken in our country? First is the Indian Forest Policy of 1952. It became conscious about the need of increase the forest cover to 1/3 of the total land area. Then we have the National Forest Policy of 1988. The ultimate objective of this policy was to maintain environmental stability as well as ecological balance through conservation of forests as a natural heritage. Then we have the CAMPA funds, or the Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority. For every time forest land is diverted for any non-forest purpose such as mining or industry, the user agency, it pays for planting forest over an equal area of non-forested land, or when such land is not available, twice the area of the degraded forest land. Okay. And lastly, as I have already mentioned, that we are going to discuss about the TREES standard. Okay, that is the REDD+ Environmental Excellence Standard. So this REDD+, it stands for reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. It aims to achieve climate change mitigation by incentivizing forest conservation. And with this, we have come to an end of today's session. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and share, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another session of Current Affairs 365, only on Port Harcourt's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. Till then, take care, keep learning. Bye-bye.
Port Harcourt IAS Academy প্রস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা
Port Harcourt IAS Academy